Do you guys know my favourite way to start a podcast?
Totally.
Well, it's by saying hello and welcome to the one, the only Game Booth Podcast, Episode 5. A podcast that's certainly not going to accidentally burn any world trees down because we get angry. As always, I'm
Mitchell Booth.
Thanks, Brandon. And joining me this week, once again, is someone who wouldn't understand most of that intro, is Russell.
I understood it. It all made sense to me.
Wonderful.
Hypothetically.
And another who also wouldn't understand it, Jordan.
I had no idea where you're going, but hello.
About World of Warcraft, I'm not going to go into it now, but let's just say it was stupid. Yeah, I'm not getting into it. I really want to, but, we don't have time because we've got to do something far, far more important, which is we have to go to a place where only we know how to get because we're going to the multiverse, where we solve problems and usually somebody dies. Hey, Jordan.
It's not very nice.
Hey, you might die again. I can't rule it
I don't
out.
like this place anymore.
I mean, the multiverse is made exclusively to kill you, so... This week, we're visiting Earth 22G, where every single game is pay to win. For example, Dark Souls allows you to buy more Estus, so you can have up to as many as you like.
Heresy, using Estus?
Oh,
What is this?
It also rains blood, so, they've got a little thing to worry about. There's lots of diseases and stuff. You don't really think of it, but until it's raining blood, then you start to realise that this is a strange world. So, to kind of do what we do on the multiverse, we have been chosen to make a decision that nobody else could be bothered making. And so, you have a choice to make, as always. But a price must be paid. When you're making your decision, you must explain why this is the correct decision and the only decision to make. So, you have 3 choices, and each choice has some outcome. Which choice 1 is, Konami gives the full rights of Metal Gear Solid over to Kojima Productions. However, Elder Scrolls Online is shut down, effective immediately. And
I'm just gonna go over here right now and be like, what?
And number 2, The Elder Scrolls 6 releases today, as if it had years in development. It's one of the best games ever made, and it just works, according to Todd Howard. However, Kingdom Hearts 3 is cancelled.
No, not happening. Not happening.
And option 3 is do neither. So it's up to you, and you have to tell me why this is the correct decision.
Wait, so we have to collectively choose, or is it individual?
You can each pick one, but no, both are dying. Or you can pick neither. You can agree that neither of you want to see ESO shut down or Kingdom Hearts 3 cancelled. But you have to live with Metal Gear Solid being Konami and, Elder Scrolls 6 coming out in a couple of years.
Well, honestly, Jordan, I know how much you like Elder Scrolls, and you may know how much I love Kingdom Hearts, but just to put it out there, I love Kingdom Hearts a shit ton, so there's no way I would ever let that game die. So, I would go with the neither option, simply because Elder Scrolls is going to come out eventually. There are so many good games in between. It doesn't really matter that much. You'll get it at some point. And honestly, I prefer Kojima to do something new. And Metal Gear's been his thing forever. I think new, fresh ideas for him is going to be exciting. And I think admittedly, it was crazy, Metal Gear games, and I didn't really ever become stagnant, but I do think he can do something more interesting, as we've already seen in Death Stranding. Thoughts, John? Yeah.
I want to go with neither because I may have never played a Kingdom Hearts game, but there's no way in hell I'm letting Elder Scrolls Online die.
Okay, so you're locking in do neither?
Yes.
Do neither.
Okay, well, Elder Scrolls Online is shut down effective immediately. Kingdom Hearts 3 is cancelled. And because of this decision, Superman 64 gets its sequel at long last.
Is it a spiritual successor, though? Or is it like the same game?
It's the same game with the rings, but, HD and stuff.
Do they have nukes in this multiverse? Because I just heard a lot of explosions going off.
Oh, yeah. You guys just...
We need to bail this multiverse as soon as possible. I cannot live in this universe. We have to go.
But before we go, you have to rate it on Multiverse Advisor. It's very important to me and all those who represent the multiverse. So, can you please rate it?
Well, last time I rated it a 0 because I died. This time I haven't died, so I have to at least give it a 1. Maybe.
But your favorite game is dead.
Yes, I'm dead inside, but I'm still alive. So I'll go 1.
Considering the destruction of the penultimate game to this franchise that I'm so closely attached to, as a million of other people in our Prime universe, I give this a 0 for the outcome of this universe, and I would abandon it and never come back again.
It's rated a 1. It's our worst rated multiverse, with the other one of last week taking the cake, but I did warn you that there was a price to pay. all decisions have a price. And unfortunately, you made the error that I was begging for you to pick. So,
Do we have to give you money now or something? Is that how it works?
no, but I will let you out of this multiverse out of the goodness of my heart.
What's the catch?
There's no catch.
There's always a catch.
Not yet. Anyway, we'll be back in a moment to discuss the news. Alright, so after that hectic multiverse, which is still hilarious, to kind of kick off the news with something that last time it came out, we didn't get much of it. In fact, we only got 4 episodes of Castlevania, the Netflix show, and this week we got to see what the future looks like, and my god, it looks as good as the last one, but we know for a fact we're actually getting more episodes. So, are we excited to actually get a full season of this show this time?
Absolutely. Hype level 11. You know, it's a beyond 10. Like, the show was just a taster. What we had before, it was really just like proof of concept to go, yeah, this could really work and be something cool. And just the trailer alone, I'm like, yes. I'm excited for everything I'm seeing.
Yes, so we're getting double the amount as last time, hopefully. 8 episodes instead of 4, but no idea of how long the episodes are going to be. So for all we know, they could be a minute each, and then they're making out with what more.
I mean, hey, they've done the 4 episodes thing, which felt like, I know it was 4 episodes, which, you know, over an hour. Yes, over an hour. Had to do my math.
It went for 96 minutes, but it felt like a kick to the teeth when you got to the last episode. It's like, what? That's it?
They ended on like an anticlimactic end where it's like they built up to this point and then they went, and now you gotta wait like ages to get the next
wait.
season.
It's like the ending was like, you're gonna be hooked on this and you're gonna have to wait. It's just like, oh come on. The wait is so long and just it looks so good, and if the season 2 trailer really shows how good this show can be, and I'm so excited for the story they're going with, because I mean it's based off the Castlevania game with a bunch of them. I can't remember the name. Russell, what's his name?
I'd say Castlevania 3 and I believe Dracula's Curse was the full title, and Symphony of the Night is clearly the inspiration for this anime series.
Sort of move on to a series that, although we don't even know if they're making this, Playground Games are working on an open world RPG that we know in a second studio they opened before they were purchased by Microsoft, which, you know, I assumed they were owned by Microsoft, but when they announced like, oh, they bought. It's like, really? I thought it was revealed they've recently hired a bunch of AAA talent to the project, including devs from GTA 5, Metal Gear Solid, and Hellblade. So, with all that, what do we think they're working on?
It's one of those things. It's like we all know what the rumor is that they've been.
You know what the rumor is?
Yeah, the Fable. Which, I mean, it seems like a mistake for Microsoft to drop one. The only really IP they're not using right now. Everything else, like, we're going all full force with them.
Yep.
But Fable,
Battletoads?
yeah, even Battletoads, yeah. It's like where they killed Fable. Seemingly almost unnecessarily with the Fable Legends, was it? Yeah.
A game where one person was going to be the villain and then everyone else had to get through it.
Yeah, that was when asymmetric multiplayer was the thing, and then Evolve came out and everyone's like, ugh, this isn't good.
I mean, it definitely wasn't the best direction for the license, but at the same time, they've hurt that IP now, where it's like, will people even be interested in a new Fable? Like, or is it one of those God of War type things where you really have to redefine it to be like something brand new and exciting?
I think to kind of rebuild the faith of Fable, you'd have to, you'd have to do God of War. It'd have to come out of nowhere, have to have a big presence, and you'd have to go like, at the start, you don't know what it is. It has to be like that whole thing of like, you didn't know God of War was God of War until it's this boy, and then you see Kratos as it's like, yep, it's God of War. And
for Fable, what that'd be? Someone coming out and kicking a chicken or something?
Chicken chaser.
You chase chickens.
I honestly feel as though sometimes maybe the game developers themselves don't know what they're making, and then there's all these rumors coming out, make this game, and they're like, well, we had this idea, but let's just go with that. Let's just make Fable 4.
I guess, if any assets are left over, I don't know if they'd use them, but...
Well, it's just, if the rumors are true, it's an interesting direction to take that company. Because they've been doing racing games. Yeah, suddenly, to divert from a racing game to, an RPG, action-adventure type experience, and that's it, provided it is similar to what Fable has been in the past, it's a drastic departure in a lot of ways.
I just realized what they're coming out with. They're coming out with Fable Racing.
The chicken chaser mobile.
Yeah. That would be hilarious. Yeah, it's a kind of Fable racing game. I don't even know how you would do it, like, and keep the license intact.
Yeah, I do think you're right in the fact it is strange doing it, but again, it makes sense that the people they're hiring, it makes so much sense that these are the people they're looking for. People from these companies, like, they know how to design open world. If you're looking at GTA 5 and Metal Gear Solid, which I assume they're talking about 5.
I guess when you're hiring thing, I guess the logic is it's from the most recent iteration, which is open world. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few other rumors that they've been hiring BioWare, EA Motive, I should say.
Let's hope they stay away from that loot box scenarios.
You know, like last week we spoke about the Forza thing, and I think Microsoft is moving away because the drama and shit that follows loot boxes is just something that isn't worth it to them.
It's somewhat ironic because Sony this week with Polyphony Digital been releasing DLC for Gran Turismo. So it's like a funny flip of Forza's removing it as Gran Turismo's adding it in.
Like, you can just buy cars, like, flat out with money in.
I think they're just building up to the next game. It's like, all right, we've finished with this game. Let's just put in microtransactions and leave it, and the make all the money we'll make, and we're moving on to Gran Turismo 7 or whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, that does make sense to me. But it is awesome when, like, a company tries something that they've never really done before and succeeding, because there's a really good example for that called Horizon Zero Dawn, where they were making Killzone first-person shooters, and then they come out and make one of the best open-world games ever. It's just like, it's always good to see a team who's, like, they're really good at developing for the car games and the racing. It's just like, if they put their passion somewhere else and they create something, normally we've seen, like, they can create something truly, truly special.
They're talented. Like, they're making one of the best in class for that type of genre. So it's like, with that kind of talent, yeah, you could apply it somewhere else and see what you can generate. There's no guarantee it's going to be the best in class, but it doesn't mean it can't be, as you said, like Horizon Zero Dawn, something that's like, man, they switched from first-person shooters to like this third-person action role-play game, and it all worked out.
Similar to sort of how Naughty Dog, like, started with Crash, and now they're like one of the best storytellers in the business, if not the best. And it's sort of true of a game created by Insomniac called Spyro, where they started at Spyro, then they went to like a gadget-focused thing, and it's really cool to see like that, how they transform. But we're mainly going to talk about Spyro Reignited Trilogy, because that's coming out in September, as well as Spider-Man. So there's 2 Insomniac games technically coming out. And the interesting thing about Spyro is it requires you to download to play Spyro 2 and 3.
On the physical disc.
On a physical disc. So it's like you get the disc, you put it in, you play Spyro, but now you have to download the other 2. My question is, why do this?
That is a good question.
It's weird because it seems like they're very clearly saying 2 and 3 are not on the disc, which all I can think of is that means that because they're building it with the idea that you're individually playing them, maybe it's like, oh, file safe, because you play Spyro 1 and then you delete it or something, and then play Spyro 2 and delete Spyro 2 and play 3, but I don't know. It's very weird.
They haven't specifically said if it's going to be the full game, but a lot of people are imagining that both Spyro 2 and 3 you have to fully download, which is like, if you're one of those people that like to collect the physical games and put them on the shelf, it'll look nice, but it's that point of, is it worth the value and just buying it on digital instead, seeing you've got 2 or 3 already on digital?
For me, it's like, it's more about it is a physical thing. It's like, oh, I'm not getting it all in there. That's weird. But the annoyance for me is more the fact that I'd like to get the physical thing because I don't have to worry about the fact that I have to download all this extra shit to actually play the game. And so now it's like, now I got to wait for ages while Spyro 2 downloads and 3. I guess they're going, well, you have Spyro 1 to play while you're waiting or whatever.
To me, that's exactly what they're doing. It'll download in the background while you're playing Spyro 1. It's just like, that's how they did it. It's still like strange in this era of games where that used to be like, in the old era of 360 and PS3, you might get stuff that required download, but that really stopped this generation when by default, we're using Blu-ray. So in my mind, these games can't fit on a Blu-ray.
That's the thing. Like, they haven't used that excuse because it doesn't make sense. They can't go, it doesn't fit. I'm like, of course it fits. You're telling me Crash 1, 2, and 3 could fit on one disc, and Spyro 1, 2, and 3 can't fit on one disc? It doesn't make sense.
It's a PS1 game. Like, the files behind that weren't big. It's just like...
It's obviously super upraised now. And all the
no, I know, but I mean, like, they would obviously... Because to me, it sounds like they're just wasting space, which has been something that developers have notoriously started doing this generation, where it's just games are way bigger than they necessarily need to be.
I was going to say, one of the things I'm really hoping that they don't do, though, is if it's a physical copy of the first game, then they just give you a code for the other two.
Yeah.
Say later on down the track, you want to trade in that game because you're over it and or trading up to a new console.
Over
You wouldn't be able to
Spyro?
trade in that game because you would have effectively taken off two of the games on there if it's on a code. If it's you basically put the disc in and then install, there'll be no problem. An example of what I was sort of talking about there is Destiny. When the Taken King came out, or Elder Scrolls with the newer expansions, you get the disc, but then you just get a code. So then you couldn't do anything with that disc if you wanted to trade it off to someone else.
Yeah, I think in my mind it's because they counted both of those as DLC. The fact it came on a disc was just a way to sell it in physical form. I don't think, I think it's a different situation where Spyro is the full game, and I think there would be more backlash if they required you to input a code that would only work on your account. It just seems like I don't see that happening for this game. Personally.
Yeah, and I think they mentioned they're very clear with what they're defining it as, and they're calling it a day one patch, which if it's a patch implies no kind of code associated with it.
Oh man, they're calling it a patch. Our patch includes 2 full games.
And their excuse is bullshit too, because other people are doing it. I'm like, yeah, it's shit there too. There shouldn't be day one patches. They should come out as the full game. That's the point.
The thing is, games in the past, on the 64 era, they come out. That is the game. There is no coming back
You
from
get
that.
it finished, and then if there's something else,
Yeah.
well, bring out another one.
And it's it fixing bugs is okay. If there's something's broken, it's we found this later between going gold and physical. It's fine, but this is this is a 3-pack. They should all be on that disc. It's just not good enough. It just isn't. It's really dodgy.
Because everything they're showing off of that game looks good, and despite this real bullshit problem, I'm sure the game will be fantastic. And
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's just a weird issue. It's what? Why? I don't know. I don't know.
yeah, are we excited to talk about numbers? Do we like numbers?
All the numbers of the world. Math is life, right?
I love math. 1 + 7 is 12. So we're going to talk about finances, sales and stuff. You don't turn off the podcast, please. It's not going to be that boring. Well, hopefully. So to kick things off, we're talking Sony. And I want to talk about how much Sony is selling of their PS4s. That's a weird sentence, but they sold 3.2 million PS4s in the time between April 1 and June 30. So between Q2? What that is? Yeah. Probably. You can yell at me later.
It sounds right.
Yeah, and so the total number of consoles shipped is 82.2 million. So to put that in perspective, the Xbox 360 and PS3 are barely ahead. This is going to overtake them. No doubt about it. What do you think about that?
It's an interesting statistic when it's tied to how the generation almost began, where it's console games are dying, no one wants them anymore.
Blech.
It's going to be you're mutating across to another platform like PC or iPhone and stuff. And how wrong they were, how incredibly wrong they were. And it seems like video games as a whole, as a console game experience, is bigger than ever. And I wouldn't be surprised if next generation is just as big, if not bigger.
To my mind, I think next generation is going to be more even, but I think the PS4, it's had a good year. I mean, hasn't had a lot, but it's had one game so far, which is, it's probably Game of the Year at the moment, unless another PS4 exclusive comes out later this year and knocks it off that, which, I can't exactly see, but I can see Spider-Man pushing console sales again, like God of War did.
I can absolutely see Spider-Man selling better than God of War, even though it probably won't be critically as received as well as God of War was.
There's a lot to do with Spider-Man, and Insomniac are doing a hell of a job, but we'll get into that a little later. I think we're going to move past the PS4 and talk about the competition. It's not Microsoft. Microsoft don't reveal it anymore because they're losing.
Yeah. It seems like it's still impressive though, just by the general external companies, how much they're saying that it's selling from their stores and stuff.
They guess it's about 40.
Yeah, it's I think that is the estimate, but it's still really good, but it just looks bad when you compare it to Sony.
It's more than the Nintendo 64. So
way more. Nintendo normally doesn't do that well, unlike other consoles.
I'm talking about Xbox is ahead of it as well. So
yeah.
we always talk about how Xbox is dying, etc. It's still they're still reporting it's selling really well, but they're not going to tell us that because they'll tell their investors, and even then they don't tell them that much because this is where all this information comes from. just investor meetings at the end of Q2 to go like, look how much we sell. And certain other company has had a really good run at that because the Nintendo Switch sales have reached 19.67 million units, which, puts them ahead of the Wii U again.
What a surprise.
No,
They finally made it.
Yeah, it's been over that for a fairly long time now. I still think it's funny. It's just shy of 2 million off the GameCube, the official best-looking console of all time. And yeah, so the Switch is selling really well, and there's a couple more interesting tidbits that Nintendo Labo has sold 1.39 million units. Don't know what they expected, but that's pretty good for a cardboard selling game.
They're releasing like a new set soon, so I honestly don't think Nintendo expects crazy numbers for that. I think they're just like, we'll experiment and see what happens.
Yeah, and so there's a car, there's a submarine, and something else. The next pack there, it looks pretty cool, but
I honestly find a lot of people with that sort of stuff will buy it once it goes down in price. They won't buy it off the bat.
somebody will resell cardboard for cheaper, but to kind of put the Switch into perspective, the PS4 had sold 20 million in 16 months rather. The Nintendo Switch has sold 19.67 million in 15 months. So the traction is currently similar to the PS4, but I think it depends on what Nintendo have left to pull with this console, which we don't know how much they've got. They've shown a few things, but they've got Pokemon on the horizon, Metroid, Bayonetta. They've got a couple things that might push it continually, but I'm not sure. Do we think the exclusives are the main reason this is selling a lot, or do we think it's because the portability, all the indies available, and just portability in general, actually?
I'd imagine mostly it's going to be portability because everything's coming to the Switch now, so everyone wants to take it with you instead of sitting at home. But at the same time, they have had quite a few decent exclusives since its launch. Zelda, Mario, etc. You
just have to look at the 3DS sales and see how well Nintendo can do on a portable market. And I think for a lot of Nintendo gamers, I think portable really fits their what they want. It's like, I can play it on the go, I can play it at home. I think Switch just has everything going for it. And yeah, I really do think it at some point they have to cancel that 3DS to really sell. I think this
They're
console.
still making games for 3DSs though.
Yeah, they are.
But they need to stop. Yeah, it's interesting to see how fast the Switch is selling. They went off the Wii U, which, that's not a console people thought of. Most people thought it was an attachment.
Yeah, it was a colossal marketing fail. All I ever think of is Star Fox Zero and just how big a mistake of a game that was to justify the gamepad. It just was Nintendo doing weird stuff and it just didn't work out.
Name any exclusive Wii U games.
Well, most of them are coming to Switch.
Mario 3D World.
Yeah.
That's my first one.
That were decent.
Yeah, 3D World was good.
Breath of the Wild.
Mario Kart, Breath of the Wild, Smash. There's plenty of games. It's just
so they had the games.
Donkey Kong
just
Tropical
the console
Freeze?
was lacking.
Yeah, so the console was shit. That I'll give you. It was a shithouse console, but the game, seriously, Nintendo can always make good games.
Well, Reggie's always software sells hardware. I'm in Wii U's case, it really didn't. You had good software, but it didn't sell the hardware.
Spider-Man does whatever a Spider-Man does. It's not really how the song goes, but welcome back to the Game Booth podcast. Now we're on to the discussion where, indeed, we are talking about the web slinger himself. I think I've used that as an intro thing before, but whatever. So with Spider-Man on the horizon and Crystal Dynamics working on Avengers, I really wanted to talk about the future of superhero games and what that looks like, with Disney pushing other companies to do it, and also Infinity War just came out on digital, so I've been thinking about it. And yeah, so to jump right in, what do we think of the success of Spider-Man? How much will it sell? Will it be the best seller of the year, do we think, for the PS4?
I believe it will sell extremely well. Mainly for the fact that they've, rebooted Spider-Man 3 times now in cinemas recently. And
yes,
but yeah, it's been 3 reboots, but not that recently. Yeah,
not that
but
recently.
The last 2 essentially died off around the same time the last Spider-Man game came out, which was 4 years ago, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So right now there is a lot of hype with the Spider-Man character swinging back to action. So people want a new game.
I mean, I I would just say Spider-Man is always like the strongest Marvel character. Like I think he's literally like one of the, if not the best-selling toy for
I think
Marvel
Thanos
characters.
is stronger.
Not in sales numbers, Mitchell. Not in sales numbers.
I know Thanos could sell. He's a good marketer. It's 50% off everything.
But yeah, it has been. I don't know how long it's been. Probably like 4 or 5 years since that game came out. So in that respect, yeah, there's been a bit of time. But I would say the bigger impact of the Spider-Man PS4 game is the developer, Insomniac. It's a big AAA developer who's had a lot of credibility with the games they've made in the past, and
Oh yeah.
now they're making something with the money basically from Sony, like pushing it, and that helps a lot to make something that's really going.
One thing Peter Parker doesn't have money.
It's not about the money, it's about sending a message. It's been a while since Spider-Man's had a game, and Spider-Man, as you said, he's had a rocky road in the cinemas. The first Spider-Man got to 3 before it's just like, well, this is terrible. And then Amazing Spider-Man got to 2 and like, well, this is terrible. And now they're up to Homecoming with Tom Holland playing Spider-Man. They're like, yeah, you know what? We're happy with this Spider-Man for now.
They just cast him right. He just fits the character. He's young.
Yeah, he seems like Peter Parker, and that is the best thing. And you could say the same about Spider-Man this game. Like, they're putting more emphasis on Peter Parker as a character, where, most superhero games are like, the Arkham series is just like, for the most part, you're not Bruce for very often. Yeah.
They do have elements of Bruce Wayne, though. Like, it does
they do.
feed in, yeah.
Non-Batman Bruce Wayne a few times.
You essentially break out of prison and beat the crap out of everyone, and
It's
then
like,
get your
how could he
Batsuit and
be
you fly
Batman?
off.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like, I am very interested the way they're going with, like, Spider-Man has been doing this for a while. It's not like we're getting the origin story again. It's like, how many times do you have to see Uncle Ben die?
Well, to be fair, they didn't show us this time. They saved us the heartache.
Heavily implied it. Yeah, I guess the history with the Spider-Man games is they've had time for people to actually work out, like, okay, here's how to make the swinging fun, because, it's a major, major part of Spider-Man. If him swinging around and climbing buildings is boring, you've made a bad game.
If you don't nail that, then it's just not a Spider-Man game. Like, you failed. You failed in the entire purpose. Like, if you cock that up, but then everything else is great, it's still a failure, just because of how important that is to his character and just experience of the game.
It's so very important, but Spider-Man is coming out later this year, and, like, there's no reason not to be excited. Everything they've shown off looks good. They've done previews lately, which we didn't get invited to, but, they're going to regret it later. But it's not the only superhero thing in development, because you've got Avengers by Crystal Dynamics. What do we even expect this game to be?
We haven't seen anything from it since, not this E3, but the E3 before. And it was just a few trailers.
We've seen nothing but the Metroid Prime situation, where just a logo drop.
Hey, it showed
basically
Iron Man's mask, Cap's shield, Mjolnir. It showed off more than Metroid.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's the Avengers, so it's like, well, there they are, as opposed to Metroid Prime, where they could go, you know what? You're not Samus anymore, you're another character.
You're Greg.
Yeah, they could drop that on you. They won't, but I'm just saying they could. They haven't technically shown that you're a Samus. And to ask your original question, like, what it's going to be, I don't know. Like, Crystal Dynamics has had kind of all kinds of dynamic things they've worked on, but I do think the cornerstone of everything is always storytelling. Like, that's been...
And they love crystals.
And recently, they've been nailing their storytelling with the Tomb Raider series.
Yeah, so I think Crystal Dynamics doing this, they have worked on some pretty, like, games that pushed the medium forward with, like, Legacy of Kain and all that, which tried different things and stuff that most games at the time weren't doing. So I'm curious to talk about the experts in superhero games, because we haven't seen Rocksteady in a while. We don't know what they're making, but there's one thing that we're noticing is the influence to all the previous games, like Spider-Man for one, like the influences of Rocksteady's Arkham series are just... It's like, are we going to keep seeing their influence for a very long time? Because, like, those games nailed Batman. Not in a other way, but...
They just did something special where it's like they considered Batman as a character, and they didn't go, well, let's just apply this genre to him. They went, no, what can we do that fits the Batman, like, persona? And they incorporated stealth mechanics, they incorporated beat-em-up mechanics, they incorporated Metrovania mechanics. Like, they had all these systems in place that they felt best served that character. And if Rocksteady continues doing Batman games, which I wouldn't be that disappointed if they did, because I love the work they've done on those games, but I really do think, with what I'm seeing from other developers who are stepping out of their comfort zone of what they've been doing for a while, They whatever it is, it could be something much more exciting than if they just go, here's Arkham whatever, or here's Batman Beyond. As much as I would love that, I kind of want them to do something new.
They've got heaps of licenses under Warner Brothers, or they can make their own IP, you know?
Yeah.
It's up to them. But in terms of talking about new IP and new games, it's just like leads me to what superhero game would we love to see? One that isn't in development, one that doesn't exist, one that might not be possible. We're not developers.
One that might be interesting is having a Guardians of the Galaxy-like game, but with similar mechanics to Star Fox in space.
Space arcade shooter thing with characters in ships.
More role-playing than just that.
So they're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
In space.
Wonderful. I'm excited.
With ships and explosions and funny comedy.
Russell, what would you love to see? Because before we started this, you came up with some weird thing that you didn't exactly explain.
Well, it's when I think next gen, I like to think of what can you achieve with new power that you couldn't even conceive of back in the past, and a lot of it's got to do with expansive, like detail and worlds. Just
Detail.
It's just expand beyond the horizon. So like, I would love to see some kind of intergalactic space adventure done right. And so I'm not talking about No Man's Sky. But think No Man's Sky in terms of like the scale of it. Like I'd love it to be like Green Lantern or Lobo. So you're playing like a space cop or bounty hunter type character, and you're like traveling from space to space with all the kind of DC like characters appearing and that kind of stuff. Like an incredibly expansive world that is not an MMO. So it still has that single player core focus going on with that expansive world on top. Kind of what Anthem is indicating it's going to be. I don't know if I trust them that much, because they're very much in like, trust us, we're Bioware, we're going to tell the story. Yet everything I see from the game has me concerned that there isn't actually much of a story.
It's so funny that like the game sounds perfect, and I've fallen for that before in a game called Star Citizen, which still isn't out.
That's a good example of like incredibly ambitious that taking forever. Even all the money that's going into that game.
So much money, but like that, as you explain, it's like it's my dream game with superheroes in it, which means I'm not going to even bother saying mine, because I like your idea more than I ever had for mine, which is a Doctor Strange game.
I mean, Doctor Strange would be badass, like just the visual aspect.
Yeah, so superhero games and movies and everything are really like, there's no stopping them. And I mean, I'm curious to see with Marvel and Disney actually going like, let's actually get good developers to make our games. It's like, there's a good change, and you just need to see, like, DC had that superhero genre, like, to them. It was their thing, and it's just like, where are they at? Where's Rocksteady at? Is WB working on something else with other developers? Because they've got a couple. They could be doing a lot. So
Harry Potter series. Yeah, more dark and gritty role-playing game.
I want a dark and gritty R-rated Harry Potter game. The dream. But yeah, so superheroes, you know, there's a lot of movies. They're in a really good place with like Infinity War. That's where we're going to leave this discussion. We'll be back in a moment. Well, that is about it for the podcast. I've had a lot of fun this week. I got to kill your favorite franchises in one stroke of pure evil, which I love.
We're never going back to that multiverse, ever.
I was broken inside.
Oh, we're going back to the multiverse. We might visit that one when I want to torment you a bit further, but not this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can look us up on YouTube at Optional Extra for all the content. If you're already here, well, thank you. I would like it if you would stay here longer and subscribe and all that stuff. That'd be very nice of you. And I'd like to thank both of you guys, Russell and Jordan, for joining me once again.
Pleasure.
No problem.
Yeah, I'll thank the audience so much for watching. And hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Catch you then.
Well, this is terrible.
Hey, come dance over here with me. Come on, come over here.